Mixing can take your production to the next level. It's what separates the boys from the men. So what's the secret to getting a perfect mix every time? I'll tell you. By understanding what makes a mix sound balanced, you'll be able to apply that knowledge universally, whether you're doing something simple and quick or a completely flushed out project with as much convoluted signal flow as your 125 tracks in FL Studio will allow, all without breaking your brain. And that's what this video is going to be about. Hello beautiful person, welcome back to the channel. This video is based on a YouTube short I posted about a year and a half ago concerning mixing. So this longer video is like a 2024 update. And if you're new, hi, my name is Chu, and the only character trait I have is that I like making beats. Because of that, I'm already totally over this intro. But if you want to learn more about me, my production career, awards and accolades, and just a bunch of other stuff that qualifies me to teach you about mixing beats, check out my electronic press kit linked in the description below. Also, grab my free 14 drum kit for sounds from some of my placements and most viral beats, and that's linked below as well. Alright, so this separates into three simple main ideas. Number one is the big three, which is just a beat leveling concept. Number two is equalization, which is the cornerstone of my mixing methodology. And number three is blending supplemental sounds based on relative context. It's a little bit wonky sounding, but it'll make sense in a second. So let's start with the big three, and this just refers to the elements of the beat that need to be the most present. It consists of, firstly, the low end, which includes bass, 808s, kicks, and other stuff like that. That is the first thing in the big three. The second segment is the main snare, and that's pretty self-explanatory. And then thirdly is the melody. An important note is that if you were mixing a song, that third thing would be the lead box instead, but since we're doing beats for the most part here, we'll just stick with the melody for that third spot. Now let's demonstrate it. So first, let's take a listen to the beat. Again, Loop by Raz Trap. The man be cooking. So that's pretty crazy. And to get into beginning to level my big three, and I'll get started with just my kick. I'm pretty comfortable with just having my kick be like stupidly loud, actually. Right there is perfect. And then I just bring the 808 and it'll sit under that. I don't use decibel ranges, although I've noticed that somewhere around between -3 and -6 is usually where it ends up. Kind of just depends what sample I'm using. So then the next thing that comes in is that main snare, and now we're on to the second thing in the big three. It's going to be less loud than those low end instruments, but it's still going to be very, very present. So I could go ahead and say damn near the same volume, low key, just a little bit less. So let me just run you through the basic stack that I basically will do every time, no matter what kind of VSTs I'm using, third party or paid. EQ right at the beginning, and we'll use an analog shelf on the low end and the high end to kind of just tame some frequencies that we really won't need either way. Keep it out of the way of the 808, and then I'll usually add some reverb. I like this cathedral setting from the Fruity Reverb 2. I'll use the mix knob to tweak the wet and dry. And then just stack some delay on top of it with the widen preset from Fruity Delay 2. I'm not gonna lie, that right there is perfect. Let us move on. All right, so equalization is really important. If no one's ever told that to you, let me look you in the eye right now, homie, and say this. Equalization is very important. Again, this video isn't really a full guide. I've got a bunch of that down below, and I've got a bunch of slept on EQ videos on this channel, and we did a full lesson on it in Dope. But still, I want to give you an easy to understand explanation of how I balance my mixes for the most part from project to project using equalization. We just covered equalization a little bit with what we did to the melody, but just to show you a couple more spots I tend to apply a lot of EQ to. So for my 808, for example, let's add Fruity Parametric EQ2, and the first thing I'm going to do is roll off some low end with an analog shelf, just to roll off some of those super muddy low end frequencies that tend to just sound like trash coming out of the speaker. And then I'll take another band and do a dip around 200 hertz. And again, that just helps me tame some of the like rough muddiness in the 808 that tends to be very present at that frequency, and it allows me to then push the 808 a little bit more. As you can see, it actually increased the gain of the 808. So now I can kind of like re-level that back in. And then I'll use this band right here to kind of tame it just a little bit on the high end. I don't want to lose too much of that for this specific beat though, so I want that to be very subtle. Another place I'll use EQ is doing something very similar on my kick. For the same reason, that low end trash, I could go into a very deep reason of like why it's a good idea to do that, but like I've explained it in so many videos at this point. If you're like even remotely regular here, you know that, so just trust me. Let's just activate this soft clipper right here, and that'll actually allow us to push it up a little bit. Now that's sounding fire. And again, this soft clipper on the kick, basic settings. One more spot that I use EQs a lot for my drums is on things like hats. So I'll demonstrate it for the hi-hat, which I was supposed to bring in for the next section, but I'll bring it in just to demonstrate this really quickly. So I like to have my hats be present. They shouldn't be really ever louder than anything in the big three. Maybe by gain, it'll appear as if it's louder than the melody, but we know frequency distribution, blah, blah, blah. The melody will be perceived as louder. The thing is that like there's a frequency in there in hi-hats that's just kind of harsh, and then some open hats too. And you will think it's like over here, but really the harshness is coming from around like 7,200. It's not really happening at that 9,000 the way it looks. It's usually like around this like 6,900 to 7,200, and it just does such a good job of taming the hats. And then I can just push it a little bit more now. This shit came out clean, bro. All right, from here, it's really just about blending in the rest of your sounds. As you can tell by now, I never use specific decibel ranges when I'm mixing. It's something I used to do, but as you mature in making music, you realize that that's mostly childish. It's useful when you're just starting out, but it's something you should abandon as quickly as you can. You want to work towards getting to a point of using relativity as a concept that allows you to more easily and effectively adapt your strategies from mix to mix. So let me walk you through a quick demonstration of what that looks like in my projects. From here, it's really just about blending your sounds together and leveling everything else in with that idea in mind. And so I was already doing that with the hat. So let's just finish that up as I begin to talk through this. I'm looking at the decibels because visual representation of what's going on is never a bad thing to have access to and to keep track of, but I am more so kind of like feeling it at this point. Okay, that's cool. Now we just level everything else in. Put some outer space on that. I really hope this was helpful, and if you've made it to this point in the video, congratulations, because TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels haven't completely fried your brain yet. Trust me, that's huge. It even got my parents. This is all enough to get your mixes knocking and sounding competitive. However, this isn't actually how I mix, unless I need to finish a mix in like 3 minutes. If you want to know my ultra rare mixing technique and get a free kit, check out the free workshop linked at the top of the description. I'll see you there. Peace.